Billy, tell us about your theory about gender and race.
Okay, good, you came back. So, for my marriage and family class, we had to watch this fairly outdated film, basically about gender and communication. And it went on to say, in a pretty definitive way, men don't communicate, they're guarded, women want to talk about their feelings. And for myself personally, I felt very offended because I communicate fairly well. But in arguing with my friends and writing my paper, what I've found is that in my theory that the world is changing and men are being forced to communicate more and be more open with their feelings, you find that it's more common depending on the environment, whether it's rural versus urban. So in cities, you find more men being open with their feelings, basically a different type of man than you would find, say, in the country or middle Georgia. Then expanding upon that, the counter-argument, if you will, was that crime is primarily committed by men, which means men are more aggressive and guarded. But within that, you find that crime is committed more by African American men. And what I proposed is that due to most African American women being more independent and taking on more quote-unquote masculine features, perhaps the African American males feel that they have to be more aggressive in order to compensate for the aggressiveness of the African American woman.
All right. Go ahead.
Wouldn't that go straight back to your environment, though?
Well, what are you thinking?
Well, okay, if you put it to race and environment, if you have an African American who is, in a very high-class town, if they commit a crime, it's not going to be one of aggression, it's going to be a white-collar crime.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, if you get a white person who lives in, a trailer park and they commit a crime, it's going to be a blue-collar crime.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm on board with that. So this arises from a conversation we were having at the beginning of the class, which I like because, now I'm going to say right up, I'm proud of Billy for being willing to talk about this, especially since I warned him that I wasn't even sure I agreed. But it starts out as something of a gender story, and I think that if we think about where we're at in the world today, if we go back to, we might as well just start with Beaver Cleaver, 1950s, the same period we're using since, gender has changed almost irrevocably. Now, there are a lot that's still the same, but there's quite a lot that's actually different. In and of itself, that's a gender story. It's interesting. It's something we could actually talk about. But what I liked about what Billy was suggesting, and that makes it kind of applicable for today's reading, is the race component. And I think that I find this to be actually a rather interesting way to get at some of these things. So I asked Billy to lay out what he was saying, and the reason I was scribbling is because there's actually quite a number of variables that are involved with what he's talking about, right? So there's the old-fashioned gender communications, and we were guessing that the movie came from 1994-ish, all right? Now, here's one, isn't the world changing? Yes, the world's changing. We've got 20 years since then. Yeah, 20 years since then, and quite a bit of change leading up to 1994. So yes, the world's changing, but what does that actually mean? Well, we've got changes in urban, changes in rural, and what that means. We've got changes in men, we've got changes in women, and then we've got changes in race. So that if you were to actually try and chart this out, by the time you lay out the interaction variables, you've actually got kind of a big, difficult thing to talk about. If we were going to set up a set of interviews so that we could suss out what's going on here, in order to adequately get at what we're trying to get at, we'd have to have, oh my goodness, it's crazy. We'd have to have a man and a woman, right? So, and we need one from at least white, at least black. So right there we get to 4. Maybe we're interested in other races as well. Sometimes in the US we get a little myopic. Race problems mean black, means white. Well, there's actually a lot of other people here too, which get left out of that particular argument. But for the sake of this works. Okay, and now we want an urban and a rural, not a B, an R. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Urban, rural, men, women. Urban, rural, men, women, black, with only three variables: sex, urban, rural, black, and white. In order to interview enough people to get one of everybody in every category, you're already up to doing 8 interviews. So by the time we start speculating about this, we have to recognize that what we're dealing with is hypothesis generation. I mean, we're hypothesizing here. Not only that, but if we wanted to actually study this, one way is interviews, but if we've got this many variables already, we might be thinking about something that's statistically oriented in the first place. So, I would love to know from you guys, are the gender roles different according to race? Tough question. So that people don't sleep. It's so that the camera gets my magnificent lighting.
No,
Okay?
I think it is more on where you live than what your race is.
Okay. Do you really think? That's actually really interesting. I'm not disagreeing. That's not what I would have expected to hear.
Okay.
What's making you think that?
Because if you go to the inner city New York and, high class area, every man is going to be expected to be very in touch with his feelings and be, more feminized. Where if you go to the middle of Warner Robins, every man is supposed to be tough and, support his family. Classic Southern rules.
Okay. And so if we went and found... Okay, and you think that overrides race? That, like, the Warner Robins one's going to be true, black or white?
Generally, you can't always say it's going to always be true, but yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Go ahead.
I think culture and your level of education.
Okay. So you think education is going to matter more than race, or also?
Education and cultural aspects.
Okay.
Yeah, because there are some people from some other parts of the world that still have this mindset. If you're a woman, there's a certain way you have to think, you have to behave, you have to dress, you have to do stuff. There are certain things that you have to do as a woman. While if you are a man, you don't have to be masculine. There are certain things they expect you to do, And then if you have to consider education as well, level of education, because when people are educated and their minds are sharpened, they tend to reason differently from
I like it. Now, go ahead, Pal.
I think race does have importance with genders. I know that Chinese culture, they value having a son more than a daughter, because the son can lead and be in an ancient past, like Chinese history, like if there was a king, they'd rather have a son so they can take over rather than a girl, so the Chinese culture values
Now,
males.
do you think that that matters for immigrant Chinese here?
No.
Or do you think they just give up on all that and become Americanized?
I think the centuries developing so people don't go back to the ancient history and stuff and just learn to accept and choose love, whether it's the sun or
Okay. I like it. This is good. There's an interesting point there which would really derail the class on sex-selective abortions, but let's wait on that. Go ahead.
I would like to make a counter-argument to the location matters more than race, because just in what she was saying, location, basically a southern versus northern, not necessarily urban versus rural. You take a southern state like Tennessee, where the heart of country music, an African-American male that is in that industry is seen as less masculine as opposed to a Caucasian male in the same industry where he's in touch with his feelings. Country music is all about emotion, but yet he's still seen as masculine, and you have that same southern mentality.
But they're still rough and tumble boys.
How rough and tumble are they?
Have you seen Cowboy Troy? It's a big boy.
I mean, whenever you see a country singer, you don't see them wearing light colors, you see them in jeans and black. They're still represented as like masculine.
It's still represented as masculine, but if you take the perception of anyone, any male who takes it, because again, we're arguing over the statement, any male who expresses his feelings and isn't guarded. I mean, the quote-unquote typical perception that most people have are males versus females are that women like to talk about their emotions, men don't. Women are willing to talk about problems, men don't. Men are guarded. All that country music, all of it's about expressing your feelings, expressing how you feel. Most urban African Americans see that same behavior as effeminate.
So, I'm fascinated by the idea that a black country singer can't be a real man. Is that?
I mean, we're low on the African American males in the room, but how do you feel about black?
I got more than any of my other classes.
Do you feel that African American male country singers are less masculine
I never thought
than like
about it though.
rappers?
I never thought about it. But you raise a point. Let me think about it. Based on the music, you know, like you put the show The Voice, the country guy goes, I'm trying to get my references, I don't know that much about country music.
Yeah, that's all right.
So I never thought about it though, but he makes a valid point. The music is more about versus the urban. It's more like trying to hit it, quit it, go to the club, and type of thing. And that is, that's okay. I never thought about it. He makes a good point.
like a new song.
Country music makes you want to cry a lot of times. So
I'm gonna
I
get
understand what
some
you're
rap
saying.
coming out, you wanna cry.
Yeah,
Listen to country music for 40 years anyway.
I'm not for the content in music. It evokes more emotion. The rap is like, R&B is love, dance, but it's a good point. I never thought about it though.
Perhaps kind of warrior culture music. I don't know. But, all right, good. Go ahead.
I kind of disagree because I think all music is based on emotion. But there's a rapper named Drake. And all of his is emotional. And he's an African American
And who's the country dude you were talking about?
Terry Schreiber.
Terry Schreiber.
There it is.
I'm not saying I believe I'm saying that the perception of, yes, they're
Right.
But I'm not saying that I believe he's less feminine. I'm saying that the perspective of most other men, because again, you're talking about how society sees.
See, now here's where, well, there's about a million ways for this argument to go off track. And that was one of the things that I had said at the beginning, is there are, that's why I bring up this thing with all these different variables. I, as a non-native country listener, would have thought of country as almost a good old boy hyper-masculinity. If rappers is hyper-masculinity of black dudes, I think of country as hyper-masculinity of white dudes. And when I think about them, it's like they're all, arr, arr, I was fighting and drinking and causing trouble when I was a kid and driving my jacked up truck. And then, 20 years later, they get kind of emotional. I was sitting across the street and there's someone else's truck in my driveway, which is kind of what happens when when you act like this when you're young, or this is what but so there's a sense at least, and I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying, but it is kind of my perception. Now, there's a book actually about country music in sociology that comes out of the author's name is Peterson, and he comes out of Vanderbilt, right? That's Tennessee. Villanova's Philly. Vanderbilt, and he looks at exactly how country is constructed for country audiences. So think of that whole conversation we had about how you put together a car ad to appeal to certain people. Well, country music recognizes it's got an audience, and that audience has expectations. But one of the things that he talks about, and I'm not a fan, so I can't actually speak to this, is this ping-ponging back and forth between pop country and a roots country, if you will. And, so sometimes it's, who's the annoying girl? Taylor Swift?
Yes.
Sometimes it's indistinguishable from absolute pop, and other times it's instrumentation that you really got to work hard to like, and it's an accent that you really got to work hard to understand, and it goes back and forth. But he also tags into a gender play there as well, so that, and this I find kind of interesting, and I am going somewhere with this, that when it comes to the roots country, that tends to be more masculine. More men buy and like that, and when it comes to the crossover country, that tends to be more feminine. More women buy and like that, and of course then you see the industry putting out artists that fit those molds. Okay, hello, rap. So sometimes you have stuff that's crossover, it's easy for everybody to like. Who doesn't like Nicki Minaj, right? And then, well, yeah. But she's on the radio, right? And then other times you've got a roots rap, which is so vulgar, so crass, so the instrumentation's so obnoxious that it's hard to even understand, much less like. And if you're willing to say, I like this, and I don't have any artists for you, but it's why every single country song has to reference Old Bo Cephas, right? If you're in the country genre. In rap, it's, if you like this, you're in the lifestyle. Versus, I'm part of the 85% of rap buyers who happens to be a suburban white girl, and this is cute. Like, right? The hardcore hates that. But you'll notice the hardcore hates that in country as well. So you end up with a similar, it'd be interesting to try and take this argument apart. But the argument goes, you've got a similar construction of authenticity, you've got a similar gender play, and a similar ping-ponging back and forth between those two. Because if it gets too hard, too hardcore, the industry loses listeners. If it gets too softcore, it starts to lose its identity. And so there you go. I talked too long, I sort of shut it down. Yeah, she said she did. But so anyway, to bring that horse round back to the barn, I never, ever would have occurred to me that Charlie Pride might not be manly, right? But I'm not an average black dude.
I mean, the whole concept of Charlie Pride singing country music, he had to be pretty tough, all right? He just walked into a redneck genre and stepped in and made a career out of it, and everybody accepted it. So there was nothing unmanly about Charlie Pride in terms of he had nerve. But
it's interesting because you can do that with Eminem then too. Like Eminem got a lot of crap for being a white guy, and when I was young and Vanilla Ice was singing "Rollin'" on 5.0, got my right top down so my hair can blow, right? Ice, ice, baby. Everybody says, everybody's like, who is this dude? He sucks. But he sold a lot of records. He was very popular for a little while, and he was a one-hit wonder, and now he's on reality TV. But the point is that he almost, and then he failed, and then along comes Eminem a little while later, and people are saying, dude, how can you sing this? Where are you from? Where are you? Blah, 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 right? Doing the equivalent of walking into a redneck genre, except it's a, I don't know, brownneck genre, and has to prove his chops, right? And I think nowadays people would give him props for doing it, you know? That's interesting.
I wouldn't call him unmanly either.
Not to his face.
No, but I mean, his songs are also really emotional.
Very
Well-
emotional.
I mean, all songs
It's
are
just more aggressive.
And Nicki Minaj.
That's just more of
There is a difference between emotional and aggression. Like his
But aggression is emotion,
Yeah.
correct?
But if you
Yeah, but aggression is masculine.
Exactly, aggression is masculine emotion. Talking about your feelings and love is feminine emotion, or that's what supposedly.
There are at least 3 songs Eminem does solidly about his daughter. Like, just loving her and what he had
And
to
those
do
are the
about
songs
his
that the
life.
girls buy,
Exactly.
right? You'll
Because
notice
I love this
Still
song.
really
the
aggressive
roots of
songs.
this whole thing here. Oops, I erased it. Dang it, I erased it. The roots of the whole thing that Billy brought up at the beginning is a very popular book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And these things come up every once in a while in the culture because it helps us cross the divide, right? So if you're reading this, you're learning as a guy, when your wife has problems, she doesn't want you to fix them, she just wants to talk to you about them. And you say, look, you need to do this and this and this and this. Why? Solve the problem. Why? Because men are problem solvers. So this assumption, and I don't know how based in any of the social science it actually is, but the assumption is that men are solvers, doers, fixers, right? And women are something else. They're emotional, right? That's what this is about. They want to talk about their feelings. So, men, if you want to be good with women, you got to learn to talk about feelings. So the question is, do Eminem's emotional songs represent him trying to sell to women, right? Which is the artist's equivalent of getting laid. You bought my album, awesome. Or does this represent actual underlying shifts in gender and acceptability of gender roles? Because that's what really the question here is about. And what do you guys think?
Okay, let's try it this way. How many women feel that men are open and want to talk about their feelings?
I think it's more of a,
No.
it comes from down, like, okay, if you're in a relationship, because that's what it keeps coming down to, if you're in a relationship, personally, I don't want a soft man. But at the same time, if okay, I don't want an emotional man. Because I'm not emotional. Shut up.
Camera going.
No, I understand what you're saying. Is that you don't want
But that comes down to me. I'm not super emotional. If I have a problem, fix it. Done. I don't feel like I need to sit there and cry about it.
I'm not trying to touch on how you personally feel.
But that's what it comes down to.
But in the follow the train, who believes that men are open? So nobody, all right. Men in the room, how many of you feel that women are emotional? Raise your hand.
That's a group, yeah.
I didn't mean to raise my hand. All right, so we break down there. So now, are things changing? You are representatives that things are changing. And what you're finding is more women being less susceptible to emotion and more men having to be more susceptible to emotion to compensate, to evolve, if you will. Because although you made it very adamant that you do not want an effeminate male, I believe the reason why you made it so adamant is you feel alone, and a lot of your other female friends probably want men who are a little more sensitive. It's, it's all over the media. Twilight is popular.
Twilight is crappy.
Hold on.
You can't bring up Twilight.
Wait, it's popular not because he's a vampire, but because he's a man who
Has abs.
exposes his
That's it.
No,
exposes his emotions.
there's a man that takes off his shirt. That's it.
It's all about the love triangle. Because it was popular. It was popular even before it was a movie. It was popular as a book because a lot more women are wanting more sensitive men. They want
Bring
men.
up Twilight. It's also made for 14-year-old girls
In middle school.
in middle school who are emotional.
Yes, but 14-year-old girls who are going to be the next adults. It's
This is
showing.
actually, this is, again, and I'm not, I mean, I'm fascinated. I would have had the opposite read on Twilight. I look at Twilight and I see the most traditional masculine and feminine roles you can possibly come up with.
Really?
Yeah. Like, he might be sensitive, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But notice, she can't do a damn thing.
Without him.
Exactly. It's the
And
stupidest.
think of even, I have daughters, so be kind. But think of the scene when,
Oh, you know, scenes.
be kind. When he takes her, hi, we have warm, fresh meat, to meet the rest of his family, right? And the one gets so mad, and then, boom, he's trying to protect her from the one that's brand new that's going to eat her. He ends up actually hurting her, remember? Imagine that, masculinity where your aggression is dangerous to the women around you. Not only that, when we go over to the lone wolf side, the pack leader woman has her face off, right? What happened? Well, you know, he started to change, he couldn't control it. What do you think the cops hear every time they walk in on a domestic abuse thing?
It was an accident.
Well, sure, you know, I lost my temper, I couldn't control it. But you controlled well enough when I walked in the door, didn't you? Right? So here's a situation where here's a woman who really doesn't have anything until she has her man, at which point I'm going to give up everything in my life to be with this man. He's actually kind of dangerous and hurts me sometimes, but it's because of love. His friends are dangerous and hurt their wives, but it's because of love. And, I mean, you see what I'm saying? Now, what's attractive about him as an individual, and that's, I think, what we're looking at, is I'm looking at the social role, and you're looking at him. Maybe he is emotionally vulnerable. I think he's just a pale-faced emo freak.
Taking off of, all right, moving off of Twilight and moving on to something probably a little more Harry Potter. All right, I got no objections to Harry Potter. All right, here you have a young man, tough life, so forth and so on. Not really exactly ideally masculine. Actually, none of the males, except for the extremely violent, evil one, are really all that masculine. All of them are fairly open, Even the ones that are supposed to be jerks and, you know, are the non-traditional antagonists of the series are all still slightly effeminate, and it's okay. Draco Malfoy cries, and the women just love him more for it. What we're seeing is a change in society of how men are supposed to behave.
But you're focusing on men. Also, if you look at Hermione Granger in the entire thing, she's never feminine.
Well,
Except for once,
it's the same with women.
Yeah.
So now the question is, but notice, Harry Potter's white, Ron Weasley's white, Draco Malfoy's white. You don't see the same changes. If you look at it, and a lot of people say it's how we raise our children, all right? So we raise our children, even in what they're watching, what's on the television, you know, there's not so many violent cartoons or violent television shows anymore. I mean, there's still a lot of them.
Cartoons suck nowadays.
They are awful.
All right, so now our kids are watching Dora, where Dora can do everything Diego can do and better. Our kids are watching The Wiggles and other, you know, of the Wiggles, only 2 of them are homosexual, the rest are straight. But they're all
I
very.
didn't know that.
Because I'm going to do this as an exercise. But they're all very effeminate men. So it's showing that it's okay to be more feminine. But you're not seeing the same reverse in gender in the African American community. If anything, they're just getting more masculine. Rap is, as he said, that warrior music, and I was only theorizing that maybe it was in response to.
So what do you think is the, what do you think is the reason for the
Well, the reason in society?
Yeah.
Oh, that's just because there has to change. I mean, more women are in the workplace, men have to stay at home, so I mean, just what it means to be a father has changed in the last 30